Exodus chapter 15, verse 19. So we are here at another viewpoint in Izor, in Mizoram state. Beautiful there in the back. The actual viewpoint here is kind of over there, but seemingly it's now locked up. I guess it has maybe a bit to do with the fact that there are people used it. I can just imagine this. I've seen a number of drunkards and drug addicts over there, and in the very close to the place where the viewpoint was. Now there's a lock on, and it's all locked up. So I guess they most likely used it as a place to sleep, and the city didn't want that, so they just locked up the place. Right. Yeah. Just on that topic, the vast majority of people here, or at least the locals, claim to be Christian. Majority actually here Presbyterian and Baptists and a few others, some Roman Catholics. Right. But as we know, it does not mean, firstly, that if a person claims to be a Christian, that he is a Christian. Lots of people claim certain things which in the end not true. And I mean, and even sometimes Christians, they struggle with sin in life and they fall and all these kinds of things. So it kind of all happens. So yes, there are some. Only in heaven one day will there not be any sin anymore, and we will be fully set free from any of this. So it doesn't matter if the vast majority claims here to be Christian, you'll still find some, well, understandably. We are Christians, we still sin. That's just that. Verse 19, for when the horses of Pharaoh with his chariots and his horsemen went into the sea, the Lord brought back the waters of the sea upon them. But the people of Israel walked on dry ground in the midst of the sea. Right, this is now, already not this is the song, the hymn finished in verse 18 with the words, the Lord will reign forever and ever. Okay, so this is now the explanation as well as for the reason for this song, for this hymn that they wrote ultimately to worship God. And the reason that is that when they went into Pharaoh, that is, and his horsemen went into the sea, God covered them with water, and they were all destroyed. But the people of Israel walked through on dry ground. So the reason ultimately for this worship song. Verse 20, then Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a tambourine in her hand, and all the women went out after her with tambourines and dancing. So, yes, after ultimately this whole passing through the Red Sea on dry ground, Miriam led the people in worship to God. What she did was she took a tambourine, so it wasn't just a cappella, right? And she went in and there was dancing and everybody was excited and making noise and kind of, yeah, I know in certain churches they make a lot of noise, other churches they feel they need to just sing a cappella. If you do it for the glory of God, I think it's fine, as long as the focus is God and it's for the glory of God and not just you because you just want to repeat certain phrases over and over again. I'm totally against this repetition of phrases. Totally against it. I spoke out a bit about it already, and you look at this song, there's not a repetition of phrases even in this, even not the choir part, right, the repetition part. So yes, this is what they did. Verse 21, and Miriam sang to them, sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously, the horse and his rider he has thrown into the sea. Okay, so Miriam, and ultimately immediately with this, leading the people in, singing with the tambourines, making the noise, she sang these words of that they need to sing glory to the Lord. Why? Because he has triumphed gloriously. God that is threw the horse and his rider into the sea. This is what happened, and this is in therefore a result of she leading the people singing the song. Now, just a question concerning this whole hymn of Moses. Did he immediately there sat down and wrote down the hymn? Or is the beginning of the hymn Now, this what Miriam did, and they built upon that. Moses built upon that to write a more complex, as we have seen, hymn, right? Yeah, it's kind of a good question. Again, I don't think that this is that they wrote this hymn a long time later. It's not a question of years later after all of these other things and the earth swallowed these guys were up against Moses. Only then, like in his old, like just before he died or something, he wrote down this hymn and then he put it as if. Now, on the one hand, it's not really going to matter per se if he wrote it at a later stage and he put it in here, because this hymn is in commemoration of what happened there. Miriam already sang something like it immediately, and the song developed over time, and then they put this song in here so as to remind the people of what happened. That can be no, it can be fully true. On the other hand, it's going to take them a while to get through to the next stage where they're going to, and they're going to have time to write. And it's not to say that Moses wrote it. This is, I believe that ultimately, yes, Moses did write this hymn. So yes, I just want to speak a little bit more about this whole question of. I just had to stop a little bit here and think about it, because on the one hand, it does not feel for me if it's such a big deal if they wrote it later and then added the song here, because of the context of the reason for the song is what happened there at the Red Sea. But on the other hand, the chapter started off with then Moses and the people of Israel sang the song to the Lord. So now again, this then can follow something else that happened at a later stage. But then it becomes a little bit, I feel a little bit dishonest if something else, so there's a different context, but it didn't explain the context to us. And then to say, then it happened. So we have information that is left out, implying that this is something that then immediately happened after them being led through the Red Sea and Pharaoh's armies being destroyed. So what I'm trying to get at, I hope you can follow my logic, if I can just get rid of this whatever thing, net flying around. Right, so if then they did it, and if that then was built upon at a later stage upon something else that happened, then we don't have all the information, we don't have the context. But the context is trying to imply as if this happened after the event and not after some unknown event that happened later on. Right, so for that reason, I would think just by the text and the then there in the beginning of the chapter is that ultimately Moses did write this immediately. And now you might ask, so how can one write a song immediately? You know, a poet can write a song immediately if it's inspired. So Moses being inspired by the Holy Spirit, why couldn't he? Sure, it would have been the lyrics. In other words, to come up with this lyrics that we see here, he could have come up with it on the spot there and then. Okay, and then that just would imply that these words were most likely written down by Moses even before some of the other stuff that he's going to write down concerning the history of Israel. Right? Because now he's writing this song, but the whole writing down of the history will most likely then come after, and then he will put that in there. Okay, so I just hope you can follow my logic here. So I feel that these words, this hymn here ultimately was written immediately after this happening of them going through the Red Sea, and then Miriam leading them, and as well in worship to God.